Good evening. This is Dustin Wong, as Bill Hader, as Vincent Price. Happy Halloween. In celebration of all things spooky, we at the last minute would like to beguile you with 3 terrifying tales. None of them are particularly scary. We'll be lucky if you even find them funny. But nonetheless, they are all entirely true, as well as the best we could get on short notice. We begin with our writer, L.P. Foley, and his story of a man, the car he loved, and an offer he couldn't refuse.
The skies were a particularly unwelcoming shade of slate gray that morning in Clinton, Connecticut. The sort of sky that warns you that it would be wiser to stay indoors on a day like this. But I was too foolish and too desperate to heed such admonishments from the heavens that day. And so I made the slow, agonizing trek to the Midas Auto Repair Shop, my car wheezing and sputtering as I pulled into the parking lot, and coming to a very silent, very still rest as I switched the engine off and pulled my keys from the ignition. I stepped out of the car. Was that a hint of rain that I felt on my skin just now? Or was I just imagining things? Or was it something much worse? I could not dwell on such things, not today, for I had much to do and very little time left in which to do it. The harsh, tinny clang of a bell pierced my ears as I entered the shop, and I was greeted by the pale, lusterless visage of a gaunt, joyless man standing behind the counter.
"Had we extended an invitation to you, sir?"
he asked. I recounted to him the details of my appointment, concerning my flat tire in particular. A wry smile stretched across his thin, dry lips, but his eyes remained just as glazed, just as transfixed on some unknown point in the distance as they were before. For a moment I glanced off to see what exactly it was he was looking at, but was distracted by the sudden sound of a paper sliding across a rough surface. I turned back to see a piece of paper mostly covered by the man's hand being offered to me.
"Sign here,"
he commanded softly, as he pointed to a line at the bottom of the paper with a single spindly, gnarled finger from his other hand. I asked what I was signing. He chuckled, for a bit longer than felt natural. Something was off about this man, something important, but I could not place what it was. I shakily signed my name at the bottom of the paper. Once I was done, he yanked the paper back with a sudden ferocity that immediately called all the hairs on my body to stand on end. His eyes remained just as dead, just as unfocused as before, but his mouth was now twisted into a frown of utter disdain.
"I'm afraid the tire that you described to us on the phone does not exist," he stated. "We have tried our best to procure a similar tire, but I will warn you, it is not nearly the same, and one day, perhaps, it would bring great harm to your vehicle, and maybe even you."
I wanted desperately to ask what he meant by that, but found the words stuck in my throat, cowering in fear from the anticipation of what the response to my inquiry might be, and so I remained silent.
"While you are here, sir, might I offer you a complimentary oil change?"
His voice, while less venomous, still carried an uncanny edge to it.
"A basic package would be completely free of charge, but if you wish for a more advanced service, you may find that it will cost you quite dearly."
My curiosity burned to find out what he meant by such a thing. A strained, squeaky, "How much?" clawed its way out of my tense throat.
"The price is different for us all," he said, sliding another paper across the desk.
I looked down to see the pen already in my hand moving as though magnetically attracted to this paper. For a moment, I attempted to consciously pull my arm away from the fast approaching dotted line, but my own body seemed not to listen to a single one of my thoughts. Once it was done, the pen clattered out of my hand, and I looked up, my eyes wide and watering at the man behind the counter. His eyes were now no longer looking at some far-off thing, but trained directly onto me, his cracked lips curling into an uneven smile, and his hand drew back the mostly obscured paper.
Good. Let us begin.
For a moment, I was standing there in that Midas auto repair shop lobby as I had been. Then there was a sudden jump in my perception, a start of sorts, as though my own memory had made a sudden jarring cut, like in a film. For the next moment, I was sitting back in my car in the parking lot. The sky was the same, but two things in particular had changed since that morning. The first was that my dashboard clock told me that hours and hours had passed since I'd arrived. And the second was a single, solitary pine tree air freshener with 4 haunting words printed at the bottom. Have a nice day.
Hey folks, welcome to The Last Minute. I'm Dustin Wong, the guy who gave Charlie Brown a rock. Little fucker deserved it. October wasn't even the scariest month this year, but here's what happened. NBC news outlet Today reported that China may be spreading disinformation to Americans through social media. Okay, here we go again with these conspiracies. All right, who are they going to say next, huh? The Russians? The internet? The next thing you know, they're going to say America is spreading disinformation to Americans. Come on. The nerve. Following up on last month's buried lead, a federal judge in Austin has temporarily blocked Texas from enforcing its anti-abortion law. However, litigation continues over the law's legality. So Abbott's 6-week ban was banned after 5 weeks? Don't get me wrong, I think this is great news, but the key word is temporarily. No one would be celebrating if I said I have temporarily subdued the rabid badger in the backyard. A GOP school board campaign manager from Guilford, Connecticut, was quoted as saying, helping kids of color to feel they belong has a negative effect on white, Christian, or conservative kids. But she claims her poorly chosen words were shown out of context. I'd love to know what context makes that quote okay. An alt-right meeting? However, in her defense, making kids of color feel like they don't belong has historically been a cherished pastime of white, Christian, conservative Americans. The state of California has banned the act of stealthing, in which someone secretly removes a condom without the sexual partner's consent. So, stay tuned for another edition of How Was This Not Already Illegal? If anything, I've been secretly putting a condom on. Wearing one right now. Can never be too safe. Donald Trump told Republicans through Twitter not to vote in the next 2 presidential elections. Now, while I've never been a fan of Trump's platform or lack thereof, this is an idea I can get behind. The CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, said a cut to his $31.5 million pay would offend the board. Okay, then what about just $31 million? And finally, the wealthiest 10% of Americans own a record 89% of all U.S. stocks. The other 11% is GameStop stock. Now, I don't really have a presence on social media, mostly because I just don't understand it. But every once in a while, my friends will try to convince me to create a new Facebook after I deleted my old account years ago. Then I say I don't really need a Facebook. Facebook is stupid. And they say, come on, it's a great way to communicate and stay in touch. And I say, I really don't want one, and yada, 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 back and forth. Well, look who's laughing now. Huh? Because this Halloween, Michael Myers wasn't the only white-faced, blank-staring, relentless monster watching us. Which brings us to our buried lead. Earlier in the month, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp all shut down. This caused a major blow to anyone trying to share a black and white photo of a coffee cup with an Emily Dickinson quote superimposed over it.
In all seriousness, though, when Facebook shuts down, it can affect small businesses who use Facebook as a company website and as the best way to communicate with their customers. So, an unprecedented shutdown can be a source of genuine concern for some people. However, everything was back up and running after an almost 7-hour blackout, with Facebook's VP of Infrastructure, Santosh Jahardin, saying the shutdown was due to configuration changes on the backbone routers, which I'm sure actually means something, and as someone who knows little to nothing about the magical glowing boxes we call computers, I'm inclined to take that excuse at face value. At the same time, it sounds like the kind of thing someone would say pretend to be a technician who's trying to infiltrate into the bad guy's hideout. Oh, yeah. All the wiring connected to the heads up display isn't wired properly to the mainframe tower. We're going to have to do a manual override to see how many CPUs we can generate through the router. Just made that up. My teachers used to say I had a talent for sounding smart and stupid at the same time. Anyways, the shutdown occurred one day after Frances Haugen gave her testimony to the US Senate, which I guess is just one big coincidence, like when you drive a minivan and just happen to be the first person everyone calls when they have to move. Now, if her name doesn't seem familiar, then you probably know Haugen as the whistleblower who leaked Facebook documents and private research to the Wall Street Journal and the US Congress. Haugen revealed herself during a 60 Minutes interview as the former product manager for Facebook's civic misinformation team. She has since left the team since May. She left the company in May. I wrote that. I'm sorry. On her personal website, Haugen says she became increasingly alarmed by the choices the company makes, prioritizing their own profits over public safety, putting people's lives at risk. A company putting profits before people? Why? The very idea, how absurd! Do you guys think that Zuckerberg, Bezos, and Musk all sit around a big table like they're the Legion of Doom? However, unlike Amazon, Facebook's danger isn't to its employees, but to its consumers. Haugen points to the 2020 election as an example. Misinformation was and still is a major issue facing this country, with social media taking no small part in it. According to Haugen, Facebook added safety systems to their algorithm to reduce the risk of misinformation during the election. But once it was over, they reset those systems, prioritizing growth over safety. And then a few months later, there was an insurrection on January 6th. Haugen told 60 Minutes that Facebook's actions felt like a betrayal to democracy. At that time, she had been assigned to Facebook's civil integrity team. Now, if that sounds like something Facebook wouldn't have, you're not wrong, because it was dissolved after the election and its responsibilities were divided amongst other teams. Facebook spokesperson Andy Stone told the Wall Street Journal that the company has made providing authoritative information a priority. I don't know how he can say that with a straight face, because I know for a fact you guys don't have integrity because you literally shut down that department. This whole time I thought Twitter was the toxic one in our social media relationship. I'm not saying it's perfect, but Twitter displays content in the order that it's posted, whereas Facebook uses engagement-based rankings when organizing your newsfeed. During her Senate testimony, Haugen explained content that elicits an extreme reaction from you is more likely to get a click, a comment, or a reshare. And it's interesting because those clicks and comments and reshares aren't even necessarily for your benefit. The more time you spend on the platform, the more money they make. And amongst the tens of thousands of documents that Haugen turned in, it was also revealed that Facebook executives are aware of the negative impact its platforms can have on its younger users. The Wall Street Journal reported that according to an internal document, 6% of teens reporting suicidal thoughts can trace the origin of those thoughts to Instagram. And yeah, so we should totally have an Instagram for kids. Mark Zuckerberg responded to the document leaks by saying, "We are seeing a coordinated effort to selectively use leaked documents to paint a false picture of our company." Yeah, because it only looks bad because they're only talking about all the bad stuff we do, so really it's their fault for talking about it. Dude, you're complaining about misinformation about your company being the largest distributor of misinformation. I don't know how well the "I know you are, but what" in my defense holds up legally. Then again, how can you not trust a guy with such a warm, welcoming smile? You know the thing about a Zuckerberg? He's got lifeless eyes, black eyes like a doll's eyes. When he comes at you, don't seem to be living until he gets your data. Just doing all sorts of voices this episode. If the leaked documents paint a false picture, then release the ones that paint the whole picture, because they're your documents, man. If they look bad, that's on you. If my Star Wars fan fiction was ever released and people read it, I'd have no defense. I wrote it. It's bad. That's a fact. For those wondering, it's about a space cowboy who was a little more attractive than me, and his name was Han Sulu. Han Sulu. Because that's what I thought was clever. And things kept getting worse and worse for things kept getting worse for Marky Mark and the Zucker Bunch when a second whistleblower said she'd be willing to testify before Congress. Sophie Zhang, a former data scientist for Facebook, posted on Twitter that she provided a U.S. law agency with documentation regarding potential criminal violations. Zhang has not revealed which agency, and an FBI spokesperson declined to comment when asked by CNN. Zhang was fired by Facebook back in September of 2020 and has publicly criticized the company since April of this year. Before leaving, Zhang wrote an over 7,000-word memo detailing Facebook's failure to stop political manipulation from around the world. She shared the memo publicly on her personal website, but after a complaint from Facebook to her hosting server, her website was taken down. So after dealing with a barrage of news reports, Facebook decided to do the old-fashioned thing and run away from their problem by calling it something else. Like how I'm not gaining weight, my pants are just shrinking in the wash. A lot. Near the end of the month, it was announced that Facebook, the company, will be rebranding as Meta. Zuckerberg delivered the news while literally jumping over a shark. In reality, the name is meant to reflect the company's ambition beyond social media and how virtual and augmented reality will be a key part of its strategy. Part of the presentation included a demo for a software the company hopes to create someday in which users will hang out in what they're calling the metaverse as virtual avatars. I was really hoping our scary tech future was going to be more Blade Runner or Back to the Future Part 2, not Ready Player One. And I want to make a joke about meta actually referring to metastasis, but I was beat to the punch when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tweeted meta, as in we are a cancer to democracy metastasizing into global surveillance and propaganda machines for boosting authoritarian regimes and destroying civil society for profit. Turns out slapping on a new label isn't fooling anyone, Mark. Lawmakers have regained interest in regulating tech giants and have actually created a bipartisan subcommittee to pursue further legislative action. Frances Haugen has since expressed empathy for Zuckerberg, saying he never set out to make a hateful platform, but he has allowed choices to be made where the side effects of those choices are that hateful, polarizing content gets more distribution and more reach. And Tony Stark didn't set out to make a hateful AI, but then Ultron spent 5 minutes online and even he knew it had to end. Granted, he was going to kill everyone, but still. By the way, I'm referring to the MCU film Age of Ultron. I know in the comics it's Hank Pym who creates Ultron, and the last thing I need is misinformation about how much I read comic books. Thank you. Look, Facebook wasn't even created with the most wholesome intentions, but now more than ever, it has become an instrument for harm. To quote another one of my favorite movies, Mark, you are a very successful computer person, but you're going to go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole.
And now it's me again, Dustin Wong, as Bill Hader, as Vincent Price. Get it? Another real-life scary story from our friend Cole Phelps. A tale as old as time, a man searching for love, but finding something much less appealing.
Name's Cole Phelps, tobacco connoisseur and fan of black and white films. Can I smoke in here? Nah, I'm gonna smoke. The story which I'm about to tell you is tragic, and every word of it is true. I know because it happened to me. I was a college student at the time, fresh-faced and foolhardy, easily distracted and without the wisdom brought on by years of trial and error. It was my first semester at a new school, and for the first time, I was invited to a party. Some gaudy Halloween affair with skimpy costumes and underage drinking, my two favorite things. The Facebook invite said the dame I was sweet on was gonna be there. so I was going to be there too. Halloween night came and my budget was tight, so I procured the only costume which I already owned. A full-body banana outfit which had been worn one too many times before it ever came into my possession, and it had beer stains on it since before my mama let me drink soda pop. Yet another perk of being the youngest of 3 boys. I'd planned to misbehave, which required 2 things. First, a backpack full of alcohol, cleverly worn underneath my costume and out of sight of any cop or Boy Scout who got a little curious. The second requirement was a way to get there and back safely. I was new in town and had several fond acquaintances, but no real friends yet. So I called an Uber and waited on the corner, getting wolf whistled and cajoled by cars passing by. It's tough to be a fruit in a man's world. After fiddling with my phone at the corner for a while and hearing the opinions of the unwashed masses on the faults and features of my getup, I was faced with the reality that my bank account was empty and no Uber was coming. I pivoted to plan B, to drive myself there and not get into too much mischief. Upon arrival, I learned that there was no parking. My GPS helpfully chirped that I had arrived, but I had to circle and wander for blocks in my car to find a parking garage. I concealed my beers, straightened my stem, and set off to a house I'd never been to, in the worst neighborhood I'd ever walked. Now, my hometown of Manchester has its hoods. Shady streets named after trees that you'd be nuts not to leave before sundown. But none of that compared to hard-hitting New Britain in the middle of the night. I'd hoped to find a bunch of people, but it was just me walking the streets alone. I didn't scare easy, but I couldn't help but think of the headlines if they found me dead in the streets. Banana man squashed, hit and run driver splits. So I kept my eyes peeled. After twists and turns, uncertainty, and doubling back, I found my destination. 100-year-old duplex surely packed with fruitcakes like me. And if I was lucky, a dame with a sweet tooth. I knocked and a confused boy answered. My stomach dropped. I was at the right house, but the party was tomorrow. The kid had a soft spot and invited me inside. Gave me a beer. It was Natty Light. Thank you for your time.
So apparently, safe sex could be a lot safer, and I can't wait for a sequel to The Social Network, although I don't think Aaron Sorkin can write meta. But in other news, all Kellogg's cereal plants in the U.S. halted production as over 1,400 employees went on strike to protest being asked to work unsustainable hours. To quote my favorite wacky toucan, follow your nose for the bullshit that shows. That's not what he sounds like. I don't know what the guy sounds like. What's his name? Sam? Toucan Sam? No, I totally forgot he existed. A hiker who was lost on Colorado's Mount Elbert for 24 hours repeatedly ignored calls from rescue teams because they came from an unknown number. Ironically, the rescue team was also concerned about his car's extended warranty. U.S. Marshals, along with the police of Scranton, Pennsylvania, were successful in arresting 9 sex offenders through what they named Operation Dunder Mifflin. It was further disclosed that the marshals involved were able to track down the offenders with the use of their online handle, Little Kid Lover. In the world of sports, former NBA All-Star Kyrie Irving continues to dominate conversation as he chooses to not participate with the Brooklyn Nets rather than receive the COVID vaccine. Since then, many have come out to either condemn or support his decision, including Chris Brown, who has openly praised him as a hero. Yes, because when Chris Brown says it's okay, it's probably not okay. And of all people to support a person of color, Marjorie Taylor Greene has also come out to back Kyrie Irving, tweeting, and I quote, "The fascist NBA won't let Kyrie Irving play for refusing a vaccine, but yet they still let Magic Johnson play with HIV. Now, all I'm saying is if the chances of getting HIV are the same as getting COVID, then there's a lot going on that's not being televised. And frankly, I want to see that shit. A recent breakthrough in the tech world showcases a wearable skin that allows VR users the sensation of touch and can actually feel their surroundings in virtual reality. But don't get too excited, gamers, because even with this technology, you still won't be able to feel the real tender love of a real woman. Again, very harsh, Ricky. The notoriously overpriced toy company Lego triggered every uncle in America by announcing they will remove gender bias from their toys after a survey revealed that young boys won't want to play with, and I quote, girls' toys. Personally, I wouldn't care what toys my hypothetical kid plays with. As long as they're not Mega Bloks, because we can all agree those are just worse. They're worse. Author Gary Paulson passed away at the age of 82 this month. Paulson was best known for his young adult novel Hatchet, and unfortunately he passed away before he was able to complete the long-awaited sequel, Axe. Taiwanese math teacher has begun posting calculus lesson videos to a website I've never heard of before, called Pornhub? I think that's how you pronounce it. Pornhub? Uploading videos where the only exponential growth is happening on a chalkboard, and not in some dude's pants. And the only explicit function is to actually explain calculus explicit functions. And the best curves you're going to find are on that teacher's fine dad bod. Oh, you thought I was going to say the XY axis? Because you'd be right, but more importantly, Mr. Chang Su is hot as fuck. Yes, let's divide up, daddy. Oh, multiply me. I failed calculus. I don't know how to make calculus jokes. YouTube has removed both of R. Kelly's official... He had 2 channels, that blows my mind. Both of R. Kelly's official channels from their platform after R. Kelly was convicted of sex trafficking. This, of course, poses terrible news for the artist, as it is yet another place he can no longer stream. And finally, YouTube has also canceled their annual YouTube Rewind after the company came to a consensus that everyone hates it. No one ever cares for it. Is that a joke? I don't care. It sucked. We'll be right back after this.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
And now, our final true tale of terror, as well as my final attempt at an impression of an impression, for this is Dustin Wong as Bill Hader, as Vincent Price. Please don't sue Bill. You got that berry money now. Presented by our producer, Ricky Hamilton. A desperate time that called from desperate messages.
We begin our story in one of the most undesirable places on this very earth. A hostel to only the most hopeless and desperate that society has to offer. A place that has become socially accepted as our unified rock bottom. I'm talking, of course, about Tinder. It was another lonely evening, mindlessly assorting the lack of humor, individuality, and personality in a series of lefts and rights. Most nights led to little to no success. However, it appeared that my luck had seemingly taken a turn in the matter of one match. We'll call her Paige. Her bio read that she was an aspiring MILF, along other meaningless details. My opener read something along the lines of, "Lucky for you, I'm into MILFs, ha ha ha." I can't say my lack of success was undeserved. However, lucky for me, she responded nonetheless by saying, "Well, I'm not actually a MILF." This, of course, should have been my first sign of concern. Because no shit. What made this different, however, is that it lasted longer than 24 hours, and was even taken further than I have ever gone before. We decided to meet up, in person, at a local nightclub. The night was among us, and even though the venue was sparsely populated while my friend I brought was preoccupied crying in the club from eating too many edibles, Paige and I hit it off. We committed vile acts in this practically empty nightclub. The evening ended as quickly as it came, only leaving more to be desired. She said I could come over her place the following afternoon to finish what we started. Everything was falling into place. Or so it seemed. I arrived early. Some might say I was foreshadowing certain future events, But before I knew it, I was inside Paige's bedroom with the house all to ourselves. Things were beginning to escalate and the clothes were coming off. The energy between us was quickly rising. She gave me the word of consent, and I was ready to seal the deal. Until her excitement came to a sudden halt. And in that same moment, I sensed the overwhelming feeling of being watched. I looked up at the door and realized that what I was really feeling were the raging eyes of a brawny, balding man who so happened to be Paige's father. He was standing in front of the door on the second floor of this empty home. My entire world was suddenly contained to this single bedroom. I knew at that moment whatever was bound to happen was strictly come down between me and him. I went into full primal mode. My single objective was to survive. My thoughts were limited, as I was fully immersed in my deepest animal instincts. "I'm sorry, sir," I said to him. "I'm a good boy. I'm a good boy." Even though I was ready to face the absolute worst, it was what would follow that came to a surprise. I am going downstairs now, and in the next 2 minutes, I expect both of you to be down there with me. He left the room and I picked up my clothes as my life depended on it. I reached the front door to put on my shoes when I heard, "Now hold on. Let's talk. Come over here." Even with my gateway to freedom to my left, I suddenly forgot any concept of free will and followed his orders. "What's your name? Where are you from? Where do you go to school?" I did what anyone else would do in the face of danger, and I told him the God-honest truth, as my previous primal instincts had descended into the state of mind of a loyal house pet. He kindly informed me that Paige's uncle lived in the same town that I did. How fortunate. After that, our conversation concluded, and I was free to go. Paige followed me out the door. We drove separately and met up in a nearby parking lot. I went inside her car to regain some composure. However, Paige decided to take this opportunity to make me even more uncomfortable. "Are you ever going to talk to me again? So does this mean you're never going to see me again? What are we?" She was asking very serious questions to a man who just saw his life flash before his eyes. She also subtly implied that her father had access to her car's GPS location and probably knows where I am right now. I wasn't particularly a fan of Paige at this point in the story, but before I went, I looked into Paige's distressed eyes and flew in for one final kiss. She told me that was on thin ice, so I hopped in the car and drove over the curb on the way out. For 2 weeks, I was compelled to carry a small knife while walking my small dog in fear that a similar man would come after my small dog. However, those fears were short-lived, and even though I have not since found myself to be so lucky in the vast wasteland of the online dating world, I could still live and breathe to tell the tale as a good boy.
And we're back. Okay. I was going to say, we have a very special guest. Just in time for Halloween, actually. Well, I mean, as close as on time as we get. But a very special guest in the studio today. Today, my guest is a ghost.
Aye, a spirit of the departed I am indeed. In life I was known as Sterling Fraser, adjutant of the 21st Infantry Regiment and veteran of the war against the
A
Southern
real
Fighters.
fucking ghost, guys.
I killed slave
Can
owners.
see through him and everything. Ah, man, all right. So, Sturbin, what's up, man? So, all right. You're a ghost.
Yes, been dead for about a century and a half.
Tell me about that.
Well, I died, and then I came back as a spirit, and I've been walking the earth ever since.
So you can do like ghost stuff, right?
Yes, I suppose there are some...
Like you can like levitate and make other things levitate and stuff like that.
Indeed. Would you like me to demonstrate?
I mean, I wouldn't say no.
Well, all right then.
he just lifts him out of the chair. That's cool. Make something else float. Make Ricky float. No. god! Oh god, that's cool. How did that feel?
Dude, it was pretty fucking
Oh, that's cool, man. That's cool. What else can you do?
Look, I hate to be rude, but I was told that you are a teller of amusements, and I would like to think of myself as one too. Would you mind if I?
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, like a ghost joke?
A ghost.
Oh, I love ghost jokes. Yeah. Please.
All right. So a preacher gives a sermon one Sunday.
Love it already.
Yeah, and afterwards, a man walks up to him and tells him his sermon was hardly original, and that he had read every word in a book that he owned. Now, can you guess what that book might have been?
The Bible?
It was a. It was. You're not going to believe this. It was a dictionary.
Yeah. You want to hear my ghost joke?
I beg your pardon?
So, what's a ghost's favorite fruit?
What?
Blueberry.
Oh.
Booberry.
Yes.
Because ghosts say boo.
Yes, we do. I'm not really sure I should be taking up.
Do you say boo a lot?
No, it's a terrible stereotype enforced by a bunch of ignorant living folks, and I would appreciate it if you didn't harp on that particular subject. It's insensitive.
Oh. Cool.
I am clearly wasting your valuable time, so if you...
No, this has been great. No, believe me, this is the highlight of my fucking lifetime. Look, like, I didn't think ghosts were real till this morning. Ricky told me, he's been telling me for weeks, Dustin, there's a ghost in the studio. I'm like, no, there's not. Like, I swear to God, I'm seeing shit float around, lights are flickering, which if you're doing that's totally cool, pay for it. But like, I'm like, there's no such thing as ghosts. Ghosts are made up, right? It's stupid. But he's like, I bet you I can have a ghost come in the studio today and interview you. I said, no, you can't. He's like, yes, I can. I'm like, yeah. If there's a ghost in the fucking studio tomorrow morning, I'll pay you $50,000. He's like, bet. And then look, here you are. He wasn't lying. You were here in the studio.
Yes.
You're here in the studio. Ricky was right. And now I owe him $50,000.
That's more than the Confederate government was ever worth.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. 50. I mean, I just came with a number. That's a lot of money. Hey, we're friends, right? We got to know each other a bit, right? We're friends now.
If you would like me to be your friend.
Right, and friends are there for each other, would you say? Just as like friends do.
What are you getting at?
All I'm going to ask is, look, as it goes, I'm assuming you don't have need for material items anymore. You've moved on.
More or less.
So if you happen to, I don't know, say have hidden, buried Civil War gold somewhere that I could dig up and use, that'd be cool.
Once I understand where you're coming from on this, and really I think that you need to cut back on these sorts of exorbitant sorts of...
Or if you have, I don't know, like a wealthy great-great-grandson who'd be happy to meet his great-great-grandfather
Dustin,
and
for
would...
God's sake! Your greed and indolence have blinded you. I am here to tell you that even through all your vice and despair, there is so much more to life. I've spent much of my existence bearing the weight of such inadequacy as yours to fulfill some sort of cosmic knowledge of my own purpose, but such things are meaningless. We are but the punchline to a joke told by some long-gone deity, and in the face of such a realization, we must choose whether to give in to the weakness of nihilism or laugh right along with the rest of the universe. Each and every one of us is Sisyphus rolling his stone up the hill every day of our lives, Dustin, and we must all imagine that Sisyphus is happy and content with what he has, or else we all suffer. I wanted to save someone with this knowledge, as I would have wanted to have been saved all those decades ago. Can you understand that?
I'll take a check.
Good day, Dustin.
Oh, don't be like that.
And for what it's worth, I do have gold, but I am not going to tell you where it's buried.
No, Ghosty, no! Well, all right. First time someone stormed out of the office. Well, not really stormed out, as he kind of floated out, but... Oh shit, I never asked if there was a hell. I gotta go to the bank. We'll be right back after this.
This Halloween special of The Last Minute was sponsored by candy corn, the most controversial topic of the Halloween season. Also by Black Licorice, just when you thought there wasn't anything worse than candy corn. The Take One Candy Bowl, the best way to introduce your trick-or-treaters to capitalism. Sexy Halloween costumes, because who doesn't want to fuck a minion? As well as off-brand, not copyright Halloween costumes. Look, it's Spider-Man. It's Heroic Arachnid Person. And our final sponsor, the guy with candy in their white van. Thanks for taking Halloween off all these years.
All right, folks, I'm out of here. But remember, a full moon brings werewolves, but no one asks how wolves. Have a happy Halloween and a better tomorrow.
The Last Minute with Dustin Wong, a 20-something studios production. Hosted by me, Dustin Wong. Featuring Liam Foley, Ricky Hamilton, and Ryan Phelps. Written by Dustin Wong, Hunter Bustamante, Liam Foley, Ricky Hamilton, and Ryan Phelps. Cover art by Joey Bashand. And a special thanks to Axum Creative. Contact the show at thelastminute.dw@gmail.com.